right, we have Eli Cox ready. Who would like to lead off with the questions? Jimmy?
Eli, talk about your transition from playing guard to center. What was that like?
Yeah, it was interesting. Center is a little bit different, especially pre-snap, having to diagnose the defense and have just an extra eye on the defense and also know what your offense is doing. You have to be able to see both sides of the ball and see the full picture. So it was a interesting adjustment. I think was just good for me in the long run, be able to understand defensive football a lot better and be able to just have a better knowledge of the game.
Your bigger rivalry, would it be Louisville or Tennessee?
Man, I think those are both great games. Tennessee is obviously a great football team, and that's just any SEC East game is always a big one for us. And then just playing Louisville is also great. We get to play that game for a trophy and to be the flagship university for our state is important to us.
We've been talking a lot about strength of schedule today, and y'all are hosting Tennessee and Alabama this season. So how do you think that home field advantage will affect your gameplay with those two big teams that are known for their giant stadiums and fan energy?
Yeah, it's exciting to have really good football teams come to town, and just any advantage you can get in those big games is great, and just having our fans be there supporting us is going to be awesome. Just feeding off their energy and playing an exciting football game.
You mentioned the SEC East. Do you think sometimes it doesn't get its share of the attention? The West seems to get a pretty decent share.
Yeah, I think the SEC East, the competition's growing year in and year out. Georgia's become a very good football program that's consistently in the top 5 and winning national championships. And Tennessee has obviously got a great football program. Florida, Vanderbilt, South Carolina. They're all good football teams. It's a deep field of competition.
Back on the right-hand side.
Liam Cohen comes back as offensive coordinator. What does he bring to the table?
I think he brings an ability to get our playmakers the ball in good situations. He puts them in matches that they know they can win, and he gives them the confidence that when the ball's in their hands, they'll do something special.
What's impressed you so far about Devin Leary?
I think just his confidence, and he's a very even-keeled player. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, and he's a very composed player in the pocket and in the huddle.
Left-hand side.
What are some of the goals that you and your team have set for this upcoming year?
I think our goal is just to be a consistently dominant football team. Week in and week out playing in the SEC, each game is tough, and there's a lot of good football players, and we just have to be a consistent football team that looks to win every game we play.
Left side.
Kind of going off that, how close do you feel like you are getting back into the mix of contending in the East?
I think we're close. I think this football team has got a lot of talent that's flying under the radar, and I think we got a lot of tools that, especially on the offense. Our defense, everyone knows how consistent they are. Coach White's one of the best defensive coordinators in the country and the SEC, and that unit always produces, and I think our offense is going to hold up its end of the bargain this year and score a lot of points.
And on the offensive side, how dominant have you seen the Kentucky offensive line, and are there some, older linemen that have moved on that you've learned from while being at Kentucky?
Yeah, I think Drake Jackson was a perennial starter for Kentucky, and him being back as a GA and being on staff and coaching us is huge. Just someone who really understands the culture of what this offensive line was built on through Coach Schlarman and the Big Blue Wall, and he was like a founding member of that. And so having him in the room as a constant reminder and as a coach is just, you can't put a value on that.
Fourth row, left side.
If you could break down last year, first off, why the change on the O-line, massive change from last year? And did Coach Yenser kind of not give the fair shake because you guys were playing out of position from what you normally had, so why go back to where you were 2 years ago?
I think it's just to put our best 5 on the field in the places they can flourish the most. We're going to try Jagger at center, and I think that's a position he could play really well. I think that having guys that can play all 3 interior is very important to us because, like last year we were hit with injury, and we don't want that to derail our season. We want guys to be able to play all 5 if they can. And no, I don't think Yenser got a fair shake last year. There's a lot of transition with guys in our offensive line, recruiting classes that didn't see a coach all the way through the recruiting class. We had Schlarman, and then we had another coach, and then another coach after that. So we had 3 years with 3 different coaches. So I think having that consistency in the recruiting aspect and the development aspect for our offensive line is going to be important for us.
Back row.
How have you and some of the returners meshed with the guys coming in from the transfer portal on that O-line?
Yeah, I think we've welcomed all our guys from the portal with open arms, and they're excited to be here, and just being able to get together off the field has kind of been the most important thing for us. The offensive line's got to be one of the tightest knit groups on the team. All five have to work together just to get one job done. So just spending time together off the field, hanging out with one another outside of the facility, just building that continuity and building those relationships with each other is critical for us.
Also, when you look at Liam coming back, what is similar from 2 years ago? What has changed, and how has everyone adapted to his return?
I think his philosophy is something that hasn't changed. His philosophy on offense is to be explosive and be disciplined and do the little things right. And when you have a team that can do all those tiny little details correctly and do them well is when you have not just good offenses but great ones, when the details don't slip up. And that's something Cohen always hammers home with us. And just having him back's been awesome. I mean, the guys who have been here in 21 were excited to have him back, just how many points he was able to score and the weapons he was able to use. And the new guys are excited to carve out a role with him.
Second row.
You haven't had to have a quarterback change in a while, so just how, I guess, different or difficult is it to kind of bring a new guy in and just have that transition of bringing a new quarterback?
Yeah, it's different, but it's a lot easier when the quarterback's really talented. Having Will and Devin, they're extremely talented quarterbacks, and Devin's talented in his own way, just with his accuracy, his touch, and his composure. He's a really talented football player, and I think he's just really self-aware of his leadership role that he has to have as a quarterback, and I'm excited to have him in, and he's fit in really well with the guys.
Right side.
Dan Peck, ESPN 106.7 in Auburn. Justin Rogers, your former teammate, transferring to Auburn. You went up against Justin in practice for a couple of years, got to see him in action in the games. What can you tell us about the player Auburn is getting?
Yeah, Auburn's getting a good football player. He was a good teammate to us, and I blocked him every day in practice for years. So I have a good relationship with Justin. He's a really good football player.
You have a degree already, and you're working on an advanced degree, and both of them have a media background. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, my dream job is to do sports broadcasting. I would love to do play-by-play or color commentating on the sidelines for football games. So I've been trying to tailor my degrees from the University of Kentucky to help me do that in the future.
Right side.
It was a couple of years ago, Will Levis, his production was better than it was a year ago. Do you think that had to do with the change of scheme? Was he injured a little bit? Was it a change of coordinators? What do you think happened?
I think there was a lot that played into that. There was a lot of pressure on Will. After having a really good season, I mean, the media surrounding him and the hype surrounding him is that he's got to do it all, and he's got to be the guy, and he's got to be the first quarterback. He's got to win. I mean, just all the pressure on him and just new coaches. It was just a lot for him, and I think he handled it really well. And I think he's just a really talented quarterback, and I think there was a lot that went into that. But I'm excited to see what he can do for the Titans.
Back row on the left.
You all have a lot of similar opponents this year versus last year, and with that record, 3-4 this year versus the guys who played last year in conference. How do you go about that as a team of saying we need to turn the page and turn this into a better record for that first number being greater than the second number?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to the consistency piece. I mean, the SEC top to bottom is a very talented league, and you can't win a game without bringing your A game every week. So it's just focusing on that consistency to bring the energy, bring the focus, and bring the discipline and the consistency to each game. Because these teams aren't going to give you anything, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, there are some crazy good athletes we'll be playing week in and week out, and they're not going to let you win. You got to go earn it, and that's something we're going to be focusing on to do that.
Left side, back row.
Ray Davis also wants to be into sports broadcasting, and I'm beating my Lexington cohorts to it. You can come to KYT and you're hired. What have you seen out of Ray and the maturity he brings and the maturity that Leary brings and some of the other transfer portal guys?
Yeah, I think an emphasis for us out of the portal is not just bringing in new faces, but old faces. I mean, these guys have played a ton of college football and seen just about everything you could imagine playing, and having just a veteran presence that's new to the team is really exciting, and they're able to show the young guys, what it's like playing college football, and you can't put a price tag on that experience that they'll bring.
Final question right here, front row.
Chris Farblin, KCOU 80 FM. Eli, of course, a lot of incoming players in the transfer portal, namely on the offensive line. I believe you guys have brought in 5 players in the portal just on the offensive line alone. With offensive line play, a big part of that is playing as a unit and cohesion. How have the new guys how have they gelled with the offense, and do you guys feel that by the start of the year you guys will have a cohesive unit?
Yeah, definitely. I think they've gelled really well with the group. I mean, our emphasis too when we're bringing in guys is we brought in a lot of Power 5 transfers, and Marcus, who played at Northern Illinois and played really good football there. And we brought in guys that not just fit what we need physically, but fit our culture as an offensive line. I think that has ultimately made their transition in so much easier when they have the same mentality as the rest of the guys in the room, it's easy to get along.
Eli, very good job. Thanks very much.
Thank you, guys.